Our next guest is known on social media as, quote, the Black Forager, and regularly takes her more than 4 million followers on TikTok on urban adventures, showcasing her collection and cooking of everything from acorns to pickled magnolia. Please welcome to the South by Southwest studio, Alexis Nikole Nelson. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Wash. Oh my goodness.
And the butterflies, I got to give them respect.
Thank you. Thank
Nice.
you. As a child of the 90s, some of these have been around since the 90s.
I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so it's nice. Okay, you have these TikTok videos, and
Yeah.
I saw that you're in Austin. You already are eating plants left and right. What have you eaten in Austin so far?
Oh my gosh, what have I eaten in Austin so far? I have eaten spiderwort flowers. I've eaten red bud flowers.
That's what I saw.
Yes, you saw the video
I mean,
of
you
me
straight up-
giraffing them off a tree.
You literally went to a tree and ate them like a giraffe.
That's like a happy little giraffe. I think everyone should try it at some point with a plant that you can identify.
And this is a plant right here.
This
is a
is.
living plant.
It is a living calla lily.
All right.
It's beautiful.
And I see that Tony wants to eat it. Can Tony eat this right now, our camera operator?
Absolutely
I see drool.
not. No, don't do it. Don't do it.
All right.
Don't do it. They're beautiful. Eat them with your eyes.
Eat them with the eyes. You have an amazing origin story, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Franz, our writer, wrote this, so I have to say it.
I'm excited.
Let's get to the root
Oh!
of the story.
Oh, you did it.
I'm sorry,
All
America.
the plant puns.
I had to. You know, it was one of those things.
You had to.
I had to. Franz, look what I do for you. All right. The root of the story is this. You start off discovering plants in your neighborhood, and you're like, I can eat that.
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
My mother is an avid gardener, and so when I was a kid, if I wanted to spend time with her when she wasn't busy being a head honcho VP of a big company, I'd hang out with her outside in her garden. And 5-year-olds, I'll have you know, are not very helpful. So she would always be giving me little distraction tasks to keep me from ruining what she was working on. And one day, my distraction task was to go and gather all of the onion grass in our backyard lawn to add to dinner. And I was like, oh, I don't know what you mean. And she pointed out a little patch of grass to me that looked a little taller, a little greener than the rest of the grass in our lawn. She broke it for me and just wafted through the air onion, garlic, and I was like, what? When did you put this here? And she's like, oh, it's just a weed, but you can eat it. And I was like, you mean to tell me there's just free food just hanging out in the ground? She's like, oh, don't get too excited.
But you got excited.
Oh, I got so excited and I never got unexcited.
And so at 5, when
Yeah.
your mom said, see that? You can eat that.
Yeah.
You're like, yes.
I was like, say less, as the children say. Exactly. And now that's still one of my favorite plants to forage.
You know, the fascinating thing about this is if I was in your position, right, and I would just go around Austin eating stuff, I would die. I would die. It's like I'm that dude. I'm like, Alexis has told me to go eat and forage. And I'm like, a red bud, I would eat poison and it'd be a bad day.
No, I believe in you.
I appreciate it, but for most folks watching right now, they're like, how did you know? Or like, how did you train yourself? Because if you see your videos, we're gonna get to your videos, you're just like out there like, oh, look. And you have this encyclopedic knowledge of this plant and you just like, boop, and you just pop it up and then you show us the whole process of cooking it. Did you go to a class? Is this online? Is this mom's? Like, how do you know so much about what's edible and what's not?
It has been an amalgam. Oh, well, here's an SAT word I didn't think I'd
2
find
points.
myself
2
using.
points.
Of a lot of different teachers. My mom and her mom, my Nana being my first teachers. Then you get older and kids on the playground will be like, oh, well, I found out you can eat that. And I'd be like, oh, I've got to store that away in the Rolodex. Those little clovers taste like lemon heads. I'm going to remember that later.
From the age of 5.
From the age of 5. And then I went to summer camp in the woods and I would learn from camp counselors different plants all over that you could eat. Your stinging nettles, your black walnuts. And so I've just been slowly storing away all of these plants from a young age. And then when I graduated from college, I, like many of us, was a little less financially stable than I would have hoped to be.
You just have to work harder.
You just have to You
gotta pull yourself up. Yes.
Exactly. And so my bootstrap moment was foraging around the neighborhood so me and my roommates could have greens in our ramen.
Wow.
Instead of, having no fiber whatsoever.
Who needs fiber?
Who needs fiber? Honestly, when you're in your early 20s, who doesn't need fiber? We need it now.
Yeah, we need it. Now we need fiber. So this is amazing. It's a passion plus this memory that you had with your mom to garden, and plus literally desperation for fiber and greens. Because we live in America, the most wealthy country on earth, and there are food deserts.
There are food deserts, and they're everywhere. And where I was living in Columbus at the time, food desert. It was an hour and 20-minute walk to our nearest grocery store. It would be a 40-minute bus ride to that grocery store. And so why not, instead of going and buying organic kale, why not just eat the curly dock leaves that were growing in our backyard? Equally as nutritionally dense, but they didn't hurt our wallets as much. So I started foraging for my friends and concocting these feasts made out of the things that I would find and really cheap food at the grocery store. And I started my social media, honestly, just to keep track of the recipes that I liked and wanted to do again.
And so, speaking about social media, your TikTok game is out of control. It's 4 million. I was just like, what? She is crushing it. You could flex. This is a TikTok flex.
I didn't mean to be good at TikTok.
You are so good.
Thank you.
Because, for those who haven't seen, what's your TikTok handle? Look at the camera.
Oh, right into camera. My TikTok handle is at Alexis Nikole, and that is Nicole with a K. Thank you, Mom.
So on the TikToks, right in the video, it's not just, look, here's a plant. What you show is, this is a plant. Let me educate you about the plant. Then we see you going home. You open up your fridge. You're like, let me now throw this into this dish. And then you actually cook it for us.
Yeah.
And you actually show us how you can have a delicious meal with literally something you could find on the street.
Yeah.
Which I think even the first part in itself is awesome. But the fact that you also now are a chef, right? I think you're the black forager and chef, I would say. That aspect of it, I think, is what's really educating, because it's like, let me show you how to.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what really, like, when you sat there and you're like, I'm gonna do TikTok, did you ever think 4 million?
No, I never did. And I will tell you a fun secret. I started my TikTok because my boss at my old marketing job told me, our company needs a TikTok. This app seems like it's here to stay. I'm in my 30s. I don't want to learn another social media app. You're in your 20s, because this was a few years ago. You're going to figure it out instead. So I was like, I guess I'm making a TikTok. And I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing the things that the algorithms did like.
The algorithm
and
gods.
Didn't like. Oh, yes, we must appease our algorithm gods. And one day at the beginning of the pandemic, I made, honestly, a much more earnest video than I had made previously, saying, hey, if you're afraid to go to the grocery store, me too. It was back in the era when we were still washing our bags of chips.
3 years ago.
When we bought them home. Yeah, 3 years ago, almost exactly to the day. And so I wanted to show people the greens they could gather in their neighborhood, be it urban, suburban, or country, that they could use to stretch their groceries. Because, at that time we thought we'd be inside for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit longer than 2 weeks. And that video that I honestly just made for fun as a little slice of life. It was a real thing I was doing, going and gathering those greens to stretch our groceries. Took off. It really resonated with people. And I've kind of been carrying plants and foraging around as a weird hobby since I was a kid. I got teased when I started middle school and high school.
You're telling me you got teased when you were eating plants off of the bark?
What? I ate plants off of the ground, and middle schoolers had problems
wild.
with that. I know, a novel concept.
You're just talking to your friends. Wait 1 second.
Yeah, people had a field day.
But look at you now. Look at you now. When did you decide? When did you say, you know what? I got something. I got something where I can monetize this and make this my career.
I think when I posted there's a very common flower here in the States called Queen Anne's lace. It's beautiful, comes up in the summertime, and it's edible. It's just a feral carrot. I'm sorry to ruin the magic. Queen Anne's lace is just a feral carrot. It's just a carrot that escaped from a farm. And it has this hyper-poisonous look-alike poison hemlock. And the existence of poison hemlock pretty much keeps like anyone from eating plants that have flowers that look even slightly reminiscent of theirs. I made a video comparing the two. I found them growing right next to each other, and I ran to one and I was like, here are these identifying factors. And then I did my
Is this how you run, by the way? All right, got it.
And I ran to the other one and I showed, here are all of these defining factors. They don't overlap. You can do this, I promise. And that was my first video to hit 1 million views.
Wow.
My best friend bought a bottle of champagne to my house to celebrate it.
As one does.
As one does, as good friends
This is how
do.
Gen Z celebrates.
I am secretly a millennial.
It's okay, you've given us hope.
I know, exactly. We all can do this.
But I mean, you could have actually saved lives with that way, you know? Like people are like,
Yeah.
oh, look,
Exactly.
I can eat that and not die.
And not die.
Yeah.
And that was the moment, that video taking off, and people so exorbitantly and excitedly in the comments being like, more. That was the moment I said, oh, maybe I can make a job out of this weird thing I got teased
You've
about
made a
as
job
kid.
out of it. You've made a career out of it. You're crushing it on TikTok. You're doing okays now, you know.
I'm not in a place to complain.
Yes, you're doing really well, and your star is rising. And what's also important about not just educating folks about food, you know, everyone loves food. Sustainable food, affordable food,
Yeah.
healthy food, gives us fiber. What you're also doing is you said that this actually connects you to Black culture. It literally
does,
connects you
yeah.
to the roots. So explain that to folks who don't know, who can't see it. Like, wait, how does foraging connect you to the roots of your ancestors?
Yeah, I get that a lot when I reference feeling connected to my ancestry through foraging. Because honestly, all of us have ancestors at some point in time in our long lineage that have foraged. It's the way that people used to eat before that cool thing called agriculture. But here in the United States, there is a very storied history of people, especially Black folks, enslaved Black folks, having to supplement the fat back and the scraps that they were given with foraged finds, with things that they could find, hunt, trap, a lot of which they learned from the indigenous people who were in the process of being displaced from those spaces as well. It was an act of community care for your family and the rest of the people that you cared about to learn how to forage so you could be better taking care of those around you and yourself. Now, when slavery ended, a lot of laws were put into place to disenfranchise people of color and poor people from land access. A few very not nice people knew that land access meant people could be self-sustaining. People could take good care of themselves, and that wasn't the world that they wanted at that time. They wanted people to return back to some of those farms as sharecroppers or to work for low wages in shops and quickly growing cities. And a combination of those laws and the lack of safety that Black people felt in the country due to sundown towns, and a lot of that led to us losing this knowledge base that our ancestors worked so hard to build up so that we could exist here
Literally
today.
survive.
Literally survive so that we could be born. And so for me, foraging really feels like a middle finger to all of those institutions. It feels
Could it be a middle finger to white supremacy?
It could be a middle finger to white supremacy, and I actually think that it is. That's not a middle finger, but we can pretend
pinky.
that it is.
The pinky.
So we can keep it, you know, so it'll be okay to show
Yes.
on the interwebs.
Yeah, especially as the woke virus is taking over. You want to make sure you can say this, but it's this idea of a community taking care of each other, right? Foraging because the systems aren't working.
Exactly.
So you have this knowledge base, you have this history, you go outdoors, you pass it on, grandparent to kid to grandson, And people of color, including brown folks and immigrants, oftentimes we're not known for being outdoorsy, right? We often joke, as you know, they're like, white people go do skiing, and then Tony goes and skis and injures himself. This is why we're not skiing people.
Honestly, the last time that my partner, who is white, injured his knee, it was skiing, and I did say, that's why I don't ski.
But there's something to say, like my parents came here from Pakistan, and you know, your friends go and hike. Oftentimes, not always, your white friends went hiked in the 80s and 90s, right? My parents said, listen, we came here from Pakistan. We didn't come here to go shit in the woods, right? And so it's one of those things where, but what you're saying is you want to reconnect, and especially with the pandemic, especially people of color have said, we're discovering joy and relaxation by going outside, jogging, nature. So how does this connect to our mental health as well? Especially people of color.
Oh, especially for people of color. I feel like a lot of us culturally being denied, not even denied access, a lot of it was self-policing. A lot of it was parents saying, I didn't do all of this work for you to poop in a hole.
That's a very nice way of saying what my dad said, yes.
I mean, but the fact of the matter is having a connection to your natural surroundings historically is really good for people. It makes you see more inherent value in the spaces around you, even if it's just going for a walk around your city neighborhood and taking the time to recognize plants that are growing in that area. It makes it feel more special, more valuable to you. It makes you prouder to live there. It makes you happier to live there. I also think the act of zeroing in on different plants is really meditative. It's an opportunity to not look at your phone, kind of quiet your mind, and feel connected to something bigger than yourself. I think we get so insular, we get so focused on just the things in our immediate bubble, and when you take a step back and you zoom out a little bit, you realize that some of those things aren't as big of a deal as you maybe felt they were. And I honestly think that connection to place, connection to other living beings, is something that's missing a lot in Western culture right now.
Interconnectedness? Community?
Yes, we are in a country right now that's just like, no, rugged individualism.
Bootstrap pulling.
Bootstrap pulling. And we are getting to the point where we're seeing the after effect of generations of rugged individualism, and it's isolation. And isolation isn't good for anybody's mental health.
Loneliness.
Exactly.
It kills. And we're talking about foraging as a community event, right? Future of food. The future of food, especially in light of climate change. In light of endangered food now. In light of food supply shortages. How can foraging really give us a pathway to give us some hope when it comes to the future of food and the future of sustainability?
So in terms of foraging, there are so many plants that as of right now are only forageables that I am surprised have not made their way into any aspect of agriculture. We spend so much time, especially here in the States, trying to apply agricultural practices from a continent that is not our own to our spaces, and it depletes our water supplies. It depletes the nutrient levels in the soil. It is like literally killing states like California who are having to make these brash decisions about where water is going to go when water shortages happen. And then you go through these drought periods where you're using up all the water, and now as these atmospheric rivers are hitting the West Coast, that water has nowhere to go on the arid ground. Something has to change in the way that we are approaching food on a mass scale. And I am not the person who thinks, well, if everyone just starts foraging, every problem is fixed, because that would, one, probably lead to some more problems. And two, I think while foraging can be a part of the food access puzzle, it is absolutely not the be-all, end-all. But I think if we aren't still connected to foraging and wild foods, we could lose a lot of these plants. And in fact, we are losing a lot of these plants. We have a lot of prairie crops, crops that want to grow in these rocky, gravelly, open, sunny spaces in the country that we're losing because we're turning them into developments. In the case of the Bell Bowl Prairie in Illinois, it's becoming part of the airport. They literally broke ground on it yesterday. And I think some of those foods are future crop options for us. There was a point where when I was at the Prairie Island Indian community last fall. It is Dakota land right on the Mississippi River, the headwaters. And as a community, we were digging wapato, which is a little like starchy tuber. Like they look like Easter egg potatoes. They come in all these cool pastel colors, ranging from blue to pink, and gathering them together in this muddy area where we don't know if someone planted them intentionally. And the community building aspect alone of laughing and sharing stories makes it worth it. But then getting to take these and turn them into hearty food that fed an entire community for a day. Something in my mind clicked. I was like, ooh, this is what we're supposed to be doing.
I appreciate you. Thank you for your foraging. Thank you for educating us. Thank you for helping make our life more delicious. And thank you for bringing fiber to the diets of people of color.
Fiber!
Get Alexis to 5 million followers on TikTok. It's at Alexis Nikole with a K, and on Instagram at Black Forager. And you can find our complete schedule of interviews on our website at SXSW.com/studio. Our studio interviewers are also live streaming during the conference on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SXSW. I'm your host, Wajahat Ali. Thanks for watching.